Hello everyone, in this video we are going to get into polygon modeling in Maya, and we're going to start by modeling a relatively simple chair. So the first thing we want to do is get our reference image. So I found this reference image online. It's a pretty decent blueprint. We got some nice orthographic views as well as a perspective shot of our chair. It is pretty low res. You can see this like 200% zoomed in, but for something this simple, I think that's going to be okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're not going to use all these views. We'll just focus on using the front, side, and top views. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this front view out, and then I'll shift it around to get our other reference images. So I'll just come over into Photoshop, use my crop tool. Make sure you uncheck delete cropped pixels, so that way you can crop it, but it will keep the image in the, it won't delete those pixels that are not cropped. So the first thing I'm gonna do is kind of crop around the front view of the chair, and I'm looking at this point, and I want the middle of the chair to be right there, and so something like that's pretty close. Okay, so this area is big enough. When I drag my side over view, that should fit in, and when I drag my top view, that should fit in as well. So I will commit to this, and I don't need these guys. I'll duplicate my layer, so I'll just grab the layer and drag it in, and I'll call this one will be my front layer. This one will be, we'll do the side view. So what I'm gonna do is, these were already pretty lined up, but for this top side, or the side view, drop the opacity, and then I'll hold shift. I'm in my move tool in Photoshop, and I'll just drag over. So you can see here, this is already lined up. So the main thing that we need to make sure that lines up is like the height, the top of the chair and the bottom of the chair. So that lines up perfectly. So I'm going to duplicate the front view layer again, put that on top, and let's drop the opacity to this one. And I'm going to hold shift and move down. And I'll just drag this to be in the middle. We are going to have to do a little bit of lining up in Maya, but you guys will see that. So let's turn the opacity up for this and just kind of clean it up. I'm going to paint that white. So then we have our side view, our front view. Oops, excuse me, top. So let's rename this top. Side view, set it to 100%, and front view 100%. So all you'll do is you go through and save these. So you'll save this one front, save this one side, and save this one top. Just JPEGs are fine. Okay, so once you have those saved out, go ahead and open Maya. So if you open Maya, you might get something like this. But if not, just hit spacebar, just tap spacebar. And I think this is how Maya should open up by default. But we have our top, front, and side orthographic views, along with our perspective view in our viewport. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in those reference images and put them in their own layer to organize them. So it's pretty easy in Maya. Let's bring in our front view first. So I can see here's front orthographic view, so I'll just tap spacebar here, and then I can go to view, image plane, import image, or I can hit this icon right here, image plane. And what this is asking is like, oh, pick a file to put in this view. So something that's very important though is that you are in one of these orthographic views. If you try to throw up an image plane in perspective view, I think it just applies it to the background, and that's not what you want. So we'll go to the front, and we'll hit this icon, and I saved these out, chair front. Okay, you can see there it is. Let's go to our side view. we'll hit that icon again. Desktop, chair, side. Hit spacebar, go to our top view, and we'll hit that icon one last time. Desktop, chair, top. So if we look at our perspective view, you can see it just throws them at the middle of the X or the center 0, 0, 0 point in our 3D space. So what we can do is we can push to these. Now, just a couple things. We know these chairs, like the side view and front view, are aligned from top and bottom. So you don't want to move like the front view up, because now it's not going to align with our side view. So just be careful. But what we can do is we can push the front view back in the Z axis, and we can push the side view back in the X axis, and I think I'll keep the top view on the 0, but we can select both the side and the front and bring these up. So let's go to our orthographic views. Okay. So I think something like this is what we want. But what we should have did actually before we move these out was make sure our top view was in line with our side view, right? So let's undo. And it doesn't matter, we can move this top view up and down. We just really don't want to move it side or front to back. But up and down is okay. So you can see here, if I move it down a little bit, this is the front view. We want the front of the chair to align with the front. So I am going to start pushing it back so it aligns. And I think I lined it up well enough. So once I do that, I think that's good in the front. So we know that the top view is in line with the side orthographic. So we want to make sure it's in line with the front as well. So what I'm going to do is I'll select this image plane and I'll go to modify, freeze transforms. Oops, can you not freeze transforms for image planes? You cannot. Okay. So let's do that. I'm just going to drag it back. And it lines up. So if it didn't line up, you might have to like move it in this view. So be careful with that. So I'm going to undo. That lines up pretty nicely. So now I can go in, push these back. Oops, keep that there. Okay. And just to test this out, because you want to make sure these are pretty darn close to a line, because it sucks if you get halfway through modeling, you spent like an hour, and then you find out your reference images are disaligned. So I'll just make a quick box. And I'm just going to make sure this corner matches up in every orthographic view. So I'll keep my 4 viewports open and just kind of zoom in. So if I move this up, so I'm aligning it in the front view first, then go ahead and align it in the side view. And if we did everything right, it should automatically be good for the top view. And it looks like it's right. Okay, so that's how we get the references in Maya. Let's just quickly select them. So if you hold shift, click, 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 let go of shift, you can select all of them, but we don't want these to move. So what I'm going to do is make sure you're in the channel box, hit this icon right here, create a new layer and assign the selected, and then we can toggle the visibility. And remember, if you tap this until it's on R, you can't accidentally select them in viewport, and we can toggle the visibility. Okay, let's go ahead and throw this in its own layer just to be organized, and we'll call this new layer Geo, and we'll call this layer Ref. Okay. So now let's start modeling the chair. The cool thing about this is this chair is symmetrical, so we can only model half of it and then get the other half over. So I'm just going to cut it in half. So let me step back. So I went to, by default you're in object mode, so I need to either go into edge, face, or vertex mode to move these. So I'm gonna right click, go to vertex, and then to do a marquee selection, you just select somewhere off of the model, drag it out, and then you select everything that's in that marquee selection. Okay, so we're just gonna push these in. So remember, move tool is W. Q is like our default selection. You can make selections in your scale, move, or rotate tool. But if you don't want to accidentally move, scale, or rotate something, just hit Q. W is move tool, E, rotation, and R is scale. And that's pretty much what it's like in a lot of software packages, 3D software packages. If you have a hard time remembering, you could think W is walk, so move tool, E is Euler, rotation, and R is like a ruler, and rulers are good for gauging scale or whatnot. It's kind of a hack way to remember it. It's really easy to remember those though. Okay, so let's start actually modeling this chair. So I do have shortcuts set up on my Maya, but I'm going to try to do it the vanilla way so you guys can learn where some stuff is. So X-ray tool can be found right here. Nope, that's isoline. Right here. So X-ray mode. That's what this icon does. And what this does is it like it makes our adds transparency to our object so we can see through it. Now we can see like the reference image a bit better. I have that set up as a hotkey. So if you see me toggle X-ray mode really quickly, it's because I have a hotkey set up for it. Let's go to vertex mode and let's start lining this stuff up. So X-ray mode, move this in, and go to our side view, move this out. I'm just making sure stuff's aligned. So if I select this, I'm gonna try to line it up. There's good. This needs to come up though. Okay. So this is kind of our base chair. Something that you want to keep in mind is like you always want to start off with as little topology as possible and only cut in edges and topology as you need it. So that was, I just made a square, and that's like the simplest thing I can start off with. And so I shaped that square, and now I'm going to add more geometry so I can start making extrusions to build this more complex shape. So Insert Edgeloop is going to be a tool that we're going to use a lot, and that can be found under Edit Mesh, or actually it's Mesh Tools, Insert Edgeloop. Again, I have a shortcut set up for it. I'm not sure if Alt-E is the shortcut by default. I think I set that one up, but Insert Edgeloop can be found here. So remember, we can dock stuff to our shelf too. So I don't see that here. I know we're going to use it a lot. So what you guys might want to do is go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edgeloop, hold Control Shift, and then click it and dock it onto the Polygon modeling shelf. Or you can make your own custom shelf. So here's my custom shelf. You can see I have a lot of functions here that I use. Primarily, I use this one for modeling, but you can make your own custom shelf. Just go here, new shelf, name it whatever you want, and then you can start docking stuff there. I'll just try to keep in the poly modeling one since that's a default one, but I did add the insert edge loop. So I'm going to hit insert edge loop, hit Alt X. Well, for me it's Alt X. You guys will come up here, remember? And throw an edge there. So this is that beam right there. And I'll throw one here. And I'll look at my side view and throw that here. So now hopefully you guys can see I have that topology for I can start extruding this up and start extruding like this down. So this kind of skirt for the chair. So if let's focus going down first. If I just go to face mode, so again, hold down right click and then select face. I can select face mode. So I'm holding shift and clicking each polygon, each face to make that selection. So now I believe Control E is the shortcut by default for extrusions. If you need to extrude, if that's not the shortcut, you can come up here, but I'm pretty sure default is Control E for the extrude tool. Another thing is we have this modeling toolkit, and you can actually use extrude from here too. So this is like another way we can start use some tools we can start modeling. Most of this stuff can be found up here. I do come here to use like connect and transform constraints, which we'll go over a little bit later. So I'll extrude this down. I'm looking at my side view and I'm going to stop it right here. So I'm kind of building that geometry for the skirt. I will need to add in more edge loops coming around to kind of build this arc going here, but we'll come back to that. Let's extrude these faces for the legs. So I'll extrude, just drag down. Let's look at my front view. And we have our legs. But something we might want to do is not go all the way down. Stop here, because we're going to build this cross brace. And we'll extrude again. So Control E. And Control E, so we can extrude again. One thing I noticed new people do is sometimes they'll extrude. So if I hit Control E, I technically extrude it, I just didn't move it. And then so students, I'll see often they'll like do double extrusions because they didn't realize they extruded again. So just be careful of extrusions multiple times. All right, so we have the legs. Let's go into our perspective and just hit object mode. And so now let's build this cross brace. To do that, I'm going to go to face mode, and a cool trick we can do is just select each of these faces and we're going to bridge them across. So the bridge tool can be found here, or in our Polygon modeling shelf it can be found here, or it's edit mesh, I think, bridge, right? 3 different ways we can do it. And if you want, you can set up a hotkey. So I don't have a hotkey associated to bridge, but we hit it, then you can see it makes that cross brace. Okay. Something I noticed about this one is obviously if we look at our front view, we have this cross beam going across this way. So it's not, in this perspective view of our chair also is handy. I have this open on my other monitor, but you can see it's like set back a little bit, and it's like these 2 little wedges right here. So let's go ahead and add that. To do so, I'm going to go to my side view and Alt X, or for you guys is this icon right here. And I'm going to insert another edge loop. So let's click insert edge loop. Here, 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 and here. And looking at that perspective view, I don't think these beams come all the way down. And if I look here, I think they stop right here. So I'm going to add another edge loop right here. Okay. if we want, we can edit like a lot of these. I think this is slightly low, so we can bring this up a little bit. Just marquee selecting these vertices. So now let's go to perspective. And I basically did all that so I can extrude these two faces right here. So we can extrude, Control E, move them out. And if you notice our top view though, it's kind of not straight. It is not kind of, it is not straight. So I'm just gonna move these up and push them back. But notice how like this face right here, these two faces, they're kind of skewed. If we want to make these like a perfectly straight line, I can switch to my scale tool, R, and I can just push it along this axis and it flattens out. And now I can go back to my move tool and push them in, and we're just going to eyeball where it lands on the center. Okay. So since this is the center of our chair, we don't need these faces, so I'm just going to delete those, and we don't need these ones, so we'll delete them because these are the middle of our chair and we're going to duplicate it over. All right, so the legs are done. We got the cross braces. Now let's get this nice little archway going. So let's go to the side view, and this is when we can use we could insert Edgeloop because we basically need more topology here. So we need verts here and here and here so we can push up and down. So, and the reason why that I don't have them here yet is because it's just easier to block out with less amount of geometry. So I'm just cutting in geometry as I need it. So let's do, instead of insert edge loop though, because if we do insert edge loop, you can see like I can place stuff here, but they're not even. So if we want it to be evenly distributed, the edges, we can use the connect tool. But in order to use the connect tool, we have to make a ring selection. So if I just select these two edges and then do connect, it doesn't work, or it does, but it stops right here. And this is a big no-no, because if I commit to this, now this face right here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices, and that's an n-gun, and we don't want n-guns. So that's why when you use the connect tool, you want to make sure you're doing a ring selection, so selecting around there. So for this one, it's easy enough to do a marquee selection. If you select one edge, hold shift, and then double click an adjacent edge in that ring, you will select around the whole thing. But for this one, I think it's simple enough. We can just use marquee selection. And then we can use connect, and you can see it's going around the whole thing. All right, so let's do that right here. We'll just do a marquee selection. We got our nice ring going, and let's go to our side view. The cool thing about connect too is we're not only throwing one, we can throw more than one. So let's say we want 5 might be too much. 5 is a good number. So now they're evenly spaced. So we got these nice evenly sized spaced edge loops. So if you want stuff to be perfectly in the middle, keep the slide to 0.5, keep the pinch to 0. We'll probably adjust those settings a little bit later. So let's hit enter to commit to that and go back to our side view and do a marquee selection on these. And remember, I'm doing a marquee selection so I can not only select these vertices that I see, but if we look at our perspective, if I just like click here, hold shift and click, well, I'm missing grabbing these vertices behind them according to my perspective. So you can see how that's kind of messing it up. So it's important that you understand what you're selecting, what you're looking at in 3 dimensions. So I'm selecting all these and I'll just move them up. I'll hold control, do a marquee selection here, marquee selection there to deselect, and bring those up. Do a marquee, or hold alt, deselect and deselect, and just bring that middle one up. So now if we look at our perspective, we got this nice little arch going. So we need the same for the front. The front, we can be a little bit more loosey-goosey. Because I'm just moving these. Because we're doing half of it. So this is going to be the peak. I'm going to kind of fudge the reference just a little bit, because if I were to bring like these down, it kind of throws this off just because of how I'm building it. So we're probably gonna go off the reference just a little bit and bring this up. And then I can use my, actually before we do that, let's just do a connect. So I'll do edge selection. I'll select that ring of edges. And I'll use connect. I do not need 5. I probably only need like 2. Commit by hitting enter. And I'm just going to do marquee selections. Oops, hold control. I think I said hold alt a little way when I was doing these ones, but it's control to deselect. And we're just shaping up that archway. Okay. So yeah, so got the archway, well, half of the archway here, the archway there. So that's looking pretty nice. Okay. So now let's start building this, this part. So I will select this face and I will Control E. And I'll just drag it up. So we can use our front view or our side view. And I'll bring it back. Okay. Now we can build these cross braces, these horizontal cross braces. So let's look at our front view. And I will hit insert Edgeloop. And I'm going to make these ones, I don't want to make them line up. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger, and I'll show you guys why in a second. So I'm going to give it a little bit of space. And there we go. And the reason why I did that is because what I can do is I could just extrude straight out. But looking at this reference, I can tell like this cross brace isn't flush with the vertical beam. So what I'm actually going to do is select these faces. And in 3ds Max, it's called Inset, but all an Inset is a scaled in extrusion. So when we've been extruding so far, we've been extruding and moving. All we're going to do is extrude and scale in. So I already extrude it. So let me step back actually. So I select these two faces, extrude, and I will tap one of these boxes, and notice how the gizmo changed with a blue box in the middle. That allows me to scale it. So I'll just scale it down a little bit. And now what I'll do is I'll Control E and bring it out. So now what we're gonna get is like this horizontal beam isn't flush with our vertical beam, which is more true to the reference image. Okay, so let's clean this up because I think this is going to be at an angle. Oops. Select, go to our top view, move these back, and this is where it's going to get a little bit wonky. And go to our scale tool R, and just scale it along this axis. It's the X, and this is what we have. So this is going to be a little bit challenging because there's like an arc to this beam. There's curvature to the back of this, and we got to get these in here as well. So the first thing I'm going to do, Let's go to our front view. Make sure these are like landing in the middle. We can eyeball it. I'll show you guys other ways in the future how we can make sure stuff is aligned in the middle. But this is easy enough to kind of eyeball. All right. So I think what we'll do is we'll actually add these beams coming up first, and then we'll worry about creating the arc. Okay. So to create these beams, I'll probably make them flush with the back. See our reference, even though in our reference I don't think it's flush, but I'm not going to care about the back as much. No, I guess let's try to do it the right way. So I'll go to my Insert Edgeloop tool. Split select the edge ring. Is that what really was called in my? No, Insert Edgeloop. Okay. So let's put here and here. So if you notice, I did that, and what it did is it shot it through this, like this side too. I don't really need it on this side. So let's undo. So Control Z or just Z. I'm gonna go to Face and delete these. And the nice thing about this now is when I go to my Insert Edgeloop tool, it's gonna stop it right there. It's not gonna try to go throughout the rest of my chair, which I don't really need it there. You know what? Let's not worry about this one. We'll just do one. And we're going to use our Connect tool. So I'll go to Edge Mode, Ring Selection, hold Shift Ring Selection. And I will use Connect. And we need 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can start sliding them. So if you hold Control and middle mouse button, you can kind of move these numbers here. And pinch, we can start scaling them. Okay, that looks good. So basically we made those. So we'll hit Enter. Go back to our perspective. What we'll do is we'll create this one and this one. So I'll select this face and this face. We'll use Bridge tool and select this face and this face, and we will use Bridge tool. So now it's getting tricky because I can see like these slats are kind of inset a little bit from these ones, and they have this top here. So let's go back to our front view and let's go to Edge Mode, select these rings. So if we go to Perspective, doing a ring selection, and let's go Connect. Set this to 1. And set the pinch to 0, and we'll hold Control middle mouse button to adjust where this lands. Sometimes, oops. Let's do 0.98. It's too high. I think it was like 0.95. There we go. Hit Enter to commit. Okay, so now we have that, but we need to do like the same thing we did here. Is we need to like do another one here. So let's do Insert Edge Loop here, and I'm eyeballing it, so let's do one here. And we'll probably do this middle one when we mirror the chair, so just leave that there. So now for this, we can't just bridge across, because what we'll be doing is not connecting this face to that bridge. So if I hit Bridge right here, so it looks okay, but really It's super hard to tell. If I go to X-ray mode, I have like two faces right on top of each other in there, and that's not what we want. So I'm gonna undo. So really, we want to delete these. And we'll go to edge mode, and we can actually not just bridge faces, we can bridge edges. And I use bridge mode more so for like bridging edges across than I do faces. For this chair, it just works out. We can bridge faces a lot easier in a lot of those. But now you can see what that does is it kind of connects this polygon right here. So we don't have like a face on top of a face right here. So let's bridge. So that's looking cool. And then because we're going to rely on our bridge tool to kind of rebuild this slat right here, we'll just wait until we mirror it over. But what we can do is we can go to our front view and Alt-X, and let's start building this curvature. Actually, I think I want one more edge here, so I'll insert an edge loop here. So we have one more to play with. Vertex mode, and we just need the top ones. Control deselect, Control deselect to move down. And then you just got to be a little bit careful because these ones are close together, so the change isn't going to be as drastic. And then always go back to perspective, just kind of rotate around it, make sure it's looking decent. And then if we go to our top view, you can see the chair actually bows out. So I am going to break from reference a little bit. It's not going to match up 100%, but I should make sure I'm capturing this bow, this archway in the back as well. So something I can do is, because there's a lot of vertices here. So you just got to make sure you're selecting the right ones. And I think I need one right here too, actually. So I should have used, let's delete this. I'm going to use connect to make sure it's in the middle, so those line up in the top view. Oops. Modeling toolkit, connect, set it to 0.5. I just need one, and then I can go in, readjust the. There we go. All right, so now let's go ahead. Let's go to our front view. Let's just select all these vertices. Go to our top view. And we'll start pushing them back. Hold Control, select the ones on the end, deselect, push back, Control, deselect. And it's going to be pretty subtle, but it's worth it. Okay. So if I go to perspective, you can see we're getting that bend in the top of our chair. Okay. All right, now we need to add the slat in the middle as well as mirror it over. So we can use duplicate special like I showed last week, but I think an easier method that we can use, I don't know why I didn't think about it, is the mirror tool. That should be sufficient enough. But before I mirror it, you want to make sure, because if I mirrored it right now, it's going to look at this pivot point and try to mirror it about this. So let's actually do a test. And let's hit mirror. This icon right here in the Polygon modeling shelf. Oops. And let's set the axis to X. So you can see it's trying to mirror it from the pivot point of that object, and it deletes all that detail that we spent time making. That's a cool little skinny chair if we needed a skinnier version, I guess. But that's not what we need. So I'm going to Control Z, go to object mode, hit W to go to our transform or move tool. And I want to make sure that pivot is at the center of our chair. And by center, I mean the center of it after we mirror it over. So I'll hit D, so I'm in edit pivot mode, and hold V, that snaps it to a vertex. So I can hold V, put it to a vertex that's at the middle of our chair, and I'll hit D to get out of edit pivot mode. So in object mode, I can go to mirror tool. Make sure you're in the right axis, of course, so not Z, we want X. Now you can see we're getting this nice, nice chair. So you can see here though, there's some issues, and that's because I didn't have everything aligned perfectly on that center point. So there is some cleanup that you have to do. If I move these, that's really wrong. So actually it's not wrong, it just added an extra one. But what I'm gonna do, so I'll just select them and I'll hit this icon right here, merge. And if they're close enough, they will merge to the center. So I can select all of these, and because these two are close, like, and these two are close, but this isn't close to this, it should weld those without like welding them together. If you get sometimes like, let me step back. Sometimes like these two will, there could be like another, let's just show you real quick. If I put an edge here and I want to like merge, oops, these two together and merge these two together. Well, if I select all four and I hit this tool, you can see how it collapses it into one point. That's because all four of them are pretty close together. So then you just want to make sure you weld them kind of in a separate weld pass, and that's giving us the result we want. But for this part, we don't have to worry about that because we don't have this. So I guess I can show you. I didn't want this edge here, so if I just double click it, it selects the whole loop, and then I can control backspace, and that deletes the edges along with the vertices. Let me hit Control E. So if I hit double click this and just hit backspace, go to vertex mode, you can see it left remnants of the back of the vertices. So you want to be careful with that, because obviously you're making, you're making crazy n-gons right here, and these are just, I call them lonely verts. We don't need those, so then you would get that. But if you want to just get rid of the edges, you can select the edge, control backspace, gets rid of the edges and the vertices. Okay, so that will come in handy a little bit later. So let's just weld those. Let's go to the top, make sure these are welded. They're not, or it looks like, I think we should have did duplicate special, because that would have just welded these instead of putting like two edges right on top of each other. But I think if we double click and move, yeah, you can see how to add an extra edge. I think we could just control backspace that, to be honest, and then check this one. It looks good. Control Z. Same for this one. Double click. Well, let's merge these ones since they're not perfectly in the center. Just rotate, make sure nothing got welded that we didn't. And actually, I don't need this, so I'm actually just going to control backspace, because that gives us a better result actually. Same for here. I think I can just go to edge mode, double click the edge loop, control backspace, double click this edge loop, control backspace. Okay, so our chair's perfectly welded at the center, and now I'm going to delete these faces. So I'll just hit delete and edge mode, select this edge, use my bridge tool, select this edge and this edge. And I forgot to mention this earlier, I'm really bad about using this, but if we hit the G key, that does the last function we just did. So since the last function we did was bridge, I can just hit G and it does that option. Okay, so yeah, we got a cool looking chair. One last finishing touch. we can select the faces right here. So there's a lot of squares right here, so I can singularly click them, or I can go to my modeling toolkit, switch this to drag, hold shift, and kind of drag to make my polygon selection. And then I'll just go back and make sure I switch it to pick marquee. So I'll hit Control E, move these up, hit R, scale them in, Control E, move these up, hit R to scale them in, and I kind of got like a little cushion going on. You can see the cushion looks pretty harsh. So we'll get into this probably next week, I'm guessing, but there's these things called smoothing groups that are super important, especially when we're doing low poly stuff and getting stuff ready to bake. So I'll go to, let's just select these faces. Switch it back to pick. And if I hit shift period, that grows my selection. And I'll do it one more time. And if I go to mesh display, soften edges, it kind of softens it. So now I don't have that harsh seam on top, but I don't want the seat to blend into the beams. So I can select this edge. So I'm just holding shift, double clicking to select that whole edge. And I'll go to mesh display, harden edge. So now it looks like we got a little cushion on our chair. Okay, and then just to kind of break this up, I can hide the reference and I can select this. If I hit this icon right, I have it shortcut Alt-Z, this icon right here, this shows me my wireframe without selecting it. Okay, so this is what you guys would do for your screenshot. I should see the wireframe on your screenshot when you guys do the chairs from the homework. But yeah, I think I covered everything. Don't hesitate to email me if you have questions on this stuff. But again, this is just a supplemental video going over the same stuff I went in class. So if you guys just need a refresher on how to do something, go through this video and then let me know if you have questions. All right, thanks for watching. Have a great one.